Arena, a true road game for the first time since February 29th, 2020. The 10-0 start comes to an end in Philly. Let's go. I had a whole thing planned, but those last 2 minutes kind of changed everything. So let's take a look, James, at that final play. Philly and Tobias Harris. He gets the bucket and Philly wins.
Well, a lot of people think Embiid is the guy, and he is. You know, he's the star of that team. But you cannot sleep on Tobias Harris. This guy is he's a one-on-one specialist. You know, he knows how to get his shot off. And I knew that when he got it, you know, it was going to be, you know, Tobias Harris. They didn't get it to Embiid. This is what he does for a living. And quite frankly, he carried them in the second half. You know, third quarter, fourth quarter, it was Harris who was getting some good shots. So hats off to Philadelphia. This is probably their biggest game of the year, and they played up to it. Lakers did a great job coming back. Ugly game. You know, Montrezl Harris, no points. Pope, only 3. AD not hitting free throws. This is a strange game in a lot of categories for the Lakers, but they did make a big run. Unfortunately, Harris was the closer.
Yeah, Lakers only 64% from the free throw line, only 33% from 3. Got to give Philly credit. 13-0 run by the Lakers gets them the lead. They call that timeout. They get that switch for Tobias Harris on Alex Caruso. You saw how that draw that up. They went that pick and roll, got the switch, then it was Tobias on the mismatch.
Yeah, and Alex Caruso, really good defender.
Yep.
You know, not a bad defensive possession, but Doc Rivers, for sure, coming out of that timeout, knew that the Lakers would switch, got the ball to what he felt like was his best individual perimeter player, and you got to give a guy credit. Tip your hat to him. Knocks down a big shot to secure the win.
Yeah, listen, Embiid and Simmons, they combined for 45 points. Joel Embiid, we talked about it, big game in the pregame show. One thing he is great at for sure, he's having an MVP-type season. He can get to the free throw line, and he did it tonight. He converted 11 of 13. He finished with 28, 6, and 2. Ben Simmons, a triple-double. And as you said, there's their third guy, Tobias Harris, with the game winner in 24.
Yeah, Embiid, a much healthier Embiid, a much more focused this year, it seems like, under the tutelage of Doc Rivers and the coaching staff. And, you know, Tobias, a great player. And, you know, you talk about Simmons, as you see the multiple moves by Embiid, but Simmons might not score a lot, but his impact on the game is huge. He's big, he's strong, offensive rebounds, you know, putbacks and things of that nature. So that three-headed monster, along with a collective effort for the rest of the 76ers, they did what they needed to do at home. Get the win.
You know what I'm already looking forward to, Geets?
What's
in
that?
Big game is when the Sixers definitely. But when the Sixers come to L.A., you know, assuming that, you know, obviously things continue with the season, and when they come back to L.A. and the Lakers are more rested and, you know, just more of a sound game, I think it's a really good matchup. These two teams, both teams really physical. The game got a little disjointed at times, a lot of whistles, a lot of stoppages in play. And those are tough games to keep you focused and keep the continuity in the way the Lakers normally like to play. But you have to give the Sixers credit. Yeah,
they split their 2 meetings last year. Lakers lost in Philly. They're 10-1 now at home, Philadelphia. And, James, I think you have to absolutely say that they are one of the top contenders in the Eastern Conference, along with probably Brooklyn, as everyone thinks, once they get it going, and Milwaukee.
Yeah, after this big game against the Lakers, it was a measure game. You know, it's early in the season. You can't put too much focus on it. But they definitely have arrived with the players that they have and the way they play and the way they're coached. They rebound, they defend, they can score from many different places. No excuses for the Lakers. Being on the road can be, you know, tough. It can take a little bit out of you. I think this is what, their fourth game on the road, Geeta?
On this trip.
On this trip, yeah. So, yeah, you know, it's no excuse, but it does take a little bit out of you. You get into that third or fourth game on the road. I'm not making any excuses for them, but Philly was ready, and they did a great job in Philadelphia.
D-Fish, I do want to talk about Ben Simmons, 17, 11, and 10, the triple-double. I know we talked about this in the pregame show. You weren't here, Fish. You know, everyone is just dying for him to hit threes and shoot threes and be that aggressive guy. But he just plays his style, and he's so effective, and he's also really good on the defensive end. Don't think he even gets enough credit there, but he was great tonight, 17, 11, and 10.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's continuing to understand himself, his game, what he's really good at, using his size to do things defensively that really create problems for people. He's probably first team all defense again this year. He should be, you know, an MVP candidate if the Sixers continue to play this way. He does everything at all three levels of the game, getting his teammates involved, finishing at the rim, creating havoc on the defensive end. I mean, because he's 6'10", I think we want him to be different somehow. But he's a guard, and he doesn't just impact the game through trying to score points from the outside. He has a great all-around game, and I credit the Sixers for sticking with him when people question whether they should.
Back to the Lakers, guys. The theme that I wrote down here going into those last 2 minutes before the 13-0 run was that the Lakers just, bottom line, didn't play well enough to win the game on the road against a really good team, especially in the middle of a road trip. When you shoot that way from three, remember, James, there was a point where they missed 12, 13 threes in a row. Yes, they got hot at the end to get themselves back in. From the free throw line, as you mentioned, only 64%. Fast break points, +8 for Philadelphia. So all the categories you're used to seeing the Lakers kind of dominate, it went to Philadelphia. It's really tough. I just felt like the Lakers were going uphill the whole game. Every time they get it close, down by 2, Gasol in and out on a 3, Sixers go out for a 7-0 run. Every time the Lakers chipped away, Sixers got it back up to 10 or 11.
Yeah, it wasn't, you know, for lack of effort. The Lakers were really, trying. They were trying to get back in, but when you're not getting your usual game from Montrezl Harrell, that energy, when you're not getting, you know, Pope's been shooting the hell out of the ball from 3, when you're not getting all your fire in, you know, that you need. And Philly is just continually coming back at home. It's a tough one to climb, but you know, they'll snap back. You know, they're in the middle of a road trip. They'll regroup. Give Philly their credit. Lakers didn't play. They were sluggish. They were a little sluggish, and you can't turn it on every night, especially against a good team like Philly.
Yeah, Montrezl Harrell got in that early foul trouble. 3 fouls, so he didn't play much in that first half. Got banged up a little bit. 0 points. You're rarely going to see that. As mentioned, that 3 KCP hit, that's his first bucket of the game. All right, let's get an NBA Finals preview. The answer, of course, is yes. But the best in the West take on the best in the East as the Lakers meet the Sixers for the first time this season. Tip-off here on Spectrum Sportsnet is coming up at 4:30. Hello and welcome to Access Sportsnet Lakers, brought to you by your Southern California Toyota dealers. Chris McGee, James Worthy, Allie Clifton. Brez and Trudell will join us a little later on. The Lakers in the middle of a 4-game road trip. Should be a great one tonight. Sparks head coach D. Fish. D. Fish was going to be here. He's going to join us for post-game. He was scheduled, but the news recently broke that his star player, Candace Parker, will be leaving the team to join the Chicago Sky after 13 seasons in L.A. We are friends with Candace. We work with Candace. We wish her luck with her new team. All right, let's get right to it. It's going to be a fun one. Lakers will look to continue their historic start on the road tonight in Philly. They have won 10 straight away from Staples to start the season. That is tied for 4th best start on the road in NBA history. Remember the Warriors that year when they won, 74, 73 games? They were 14-0 in the road. The Spurs were 13. The Celtics have done it twice at 10. And here are the Lakers. Big game, a win tonight in Philly. Lakers got that Celtic you-know-what on the horizon coming up on the weekend.
Yes, sir. I can't wait for that one, but can't overlook that one until we take care of this one in Philadelphia. Another big test for the Lakers. You know, it started Milwaukee. That was a big one. You know, they've really been trending in the right direction. Of course, Doc Rivers has this team playing very well, and the Lakers will have to really, play another good game collectively to get it done. So expecting to win, and it'd be nice to keep that record going.
Are you surprised, Allie, with the shortened offseason, new pieces, that they're 10-0 on the road?
I think I'm more just impressed.
Yeah.
I don't know if we can be surprised just knowing how much this team valued the defensive end of the floor, bought into what it would take to be champions, and wanting to run that back. I know we have talked about it a lot on this show. As former players, you guys have talked about kind of, what it's like to be a champion. And when it was such a shortened off season, they're still kind of feeling that vibe and that energy. So I don't think I'm surprised. I'm just very impressed.
And you mentioned the Sixers, James. This is the one kind of everyone circled. They're the best team in the East right now. They're hungry. They know the champs are in town. They're out to prove something tonight.
They have to prove, given what they've experienced the last, couple of seasons, have a new coach coming in, that's a new direction. So, led by Embiid, obviously, who's having a pretty good season. It's early, but it is a good sample of what could be. Without fans, there's really no advantage or disadvantage, I would say. But so they have to get it done as a team. Philadelphia will be ready because this is their biggest test this season.
Yeah, I mean, Allie, for Philly, they're looking at the champs coming to town. This is their chance to make a statement.
And look, as much as we're talking about the Lakers being 10-0 on the road, they've won 9 of 10 at home. So they defend their home court. And you mentioned the storylines coming in, the defending champs. You've got 2 of the best, 3 of the guys that are being talked about for early season MVP. But also, and then Dwight and Danny and all those fun storylines. But I think something to keep in perspective, which I found interesting when I looked this up, was that of those 12 wins that Philly has this season, only 2 have come against teams that are 500 or better. That was against Boston without Jason Tatum. So, look, you can say that they've handled their business and beat the teams that they're supposed to, but I think this one sets up to be a different kind of matchup.
And as we kind of go to the Lakers, LeBron James, he has great games all the time. We always run out of ways to describe him, but the special ones are really fun to talk about and watch, James. And he had one of those in Cleveland. 46 points, 19 of 26, 7 of 11 from 3. It was one of those nights where you knew he had it going early and everyone just watched. 21 points in the fourth quarter. That's one of his best fourth quarters of his career, James.
He put on a great show. And to me, it all started with the Milwaukee game. Not getting the MVP, going to Milwaukee, proving himself there. Then AD going to Chicago, going home. And then, of course, LeBron. I mean, Alec can speak to this. That's his place. He